What's up, everybody, man? It's your boy HP. I'm back with another installment of Relational Intelligence. Listen, as always, thank you so much if you're taking the time to watch these videos. Let me be transparent. They are not easy to make, but I try my best to press forward through it and give you what I get as I'm reading, right? And so shout out to you for taking out time from your day to engage a bit with us through video, right? So relational intelligence. So we've dealt with part one, where we defined our relationships by putting them into four categories: friends, associates, assignments, or advisors. Then part two, which we are completing today, we dealt with discerning our relationships, where we talked about reflection, evaluation, clarification, and for today's purpose, we will deal with acceptance. Acceptance. I always get it tongue twisted. Acceptance, right? And so he says this: it's one thing to see what we see; it's another to accept what we see. The emotional attachment and familiarity one may feel in a relationship is very real. Man, I'm tongue twisted. And after reflection, evaluation, and clarification, it can be incredibly difficult to accept what we see. Accept what we see. Guys, it's often difficult to see a friend go through seasons, and maybe both of you realize that in this season, y'all may need some space, right? It's hard to look at that relationship and say it's time for a break. When you have to have those tough conversations, when you have to have a moment of truth and say, hey, maybe in this season, I'm not what's best for you, or vice versa. Right. And so, but when we see things, it's not the time to pretend as if they are not there, but it's time to move forward with what you see, set the boundaries, and make the best choice for that season of your life and theirs. He says, seeing is tough, but we must. He says, unfortunately, our emotional attachment to others will sometimes blind us to the reality of where they are in life and whether it's safe for us to be in relationship with them. Being blind will cause a person to stay in an abusive situation. It'll cause a person to stay in an unhealthy situation. And it will definitely make you stay in an unfruitful situation, right? We want to always be in a season where we are getting our land ready to be and plant seeds so we can be able to see our fruit. If your fruit is not blossoming, maybe it's time for you to make adjustments, right? He says, this reality is even more difficult when it comes to family and churches. There are expectations that people have of those who are a part of their natural and spiritual family that don't mirror any other expectations. Spiritually, we accept people's proclaimed values to align. We expect people's proclaimed values to align with their actual priorities. That's good. We expect them to walk what they talk and practice what they preach. We often have higher moral expectations of spiritual family and believe they will be gracious, loving, kind, honest, supportive, affirming, and trustworthy people. It's often heartbreaking when we expect our church leaders and or our family to have these values: being gracious, being loving, kind, honest, supportive, etc. And then we find out when they are not at church or when they are not behind the pulpit, they lack the morals and character that they teach us to have, right? And so even when we see that, it's not time to put on blinders. It's time to see where we are and accept it, move forward in adjustments. He says, however, there are times when those who claim to know God the best represent him the worst. Facts. There are inconsistencies that impact us in unpredictable ways. These things can be hard to accept, but we must accept them. Everyone who likes Christ isn't Christ-like. We have to get that through our head. We are human. We are imperfect. We do things that don't always align with God. And we still must show grace. But even in that, we still cannot put blinders on. We have to acknowledge what we see, accept it again, and make adjustments. That's the word. All right. It is simply a reality that must be accepted. Just because someone is spiritual doesn't mean they are safe. Man. Just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you belong in my safe space. Because watch this, even spiritual people can be dangerous if they're not practical. Right? You can pray all day long, but if you're not practicing and being practical in your faith, you may be considered dangerous for some people. All right. This same truth applies to family. We often, rightfully so, have different expectations of our natural family. We expect them to be loving, supportive, and honorable. However, a person's love for us doesn't determine how they treat us. Yes. The question is whether or not people love. The question isn't whether or not people love us. It's whether or not their love is leading them. What Dr. Darius Daniels says here is like gold. Our family's love for us doesn't necessarily mean that their love is leading us. Sometimes we can lead out of hurt. We can lead out of dysfunction, right? And when we lead out of hurt and or dysfunction, we often lead those that we love to dangerous spaces. And then we have to regroup and start all over again, right? Again, it's about seeing where we are, accepting it, and make proper adjustments as we move forward. There are people who have unaddressed and unmanaged emotional issues that don't allow them to act in loving ways. There are parents who genuinely love their children who also don't act in loving ways, and vice versa. Just because someone is part of your natural or spiritual family doesn't mean they are safe. What happens when their fruit changes? We are challenged to accept that they may have changed. We struggle with the notion that they may not meet the criteria for elimination, but the relationship certainly is in need of adjustment. That's the word of the video. Acceptance and adjustments. You must make adjustments when you see things are not aligned, right? So he goes on to say choice matters. CHOICE. Choice matters. Why do we need to spend so much time reflecting, evaluating, and otherwise assessing our relationships? Because who we choose to be in relationship with matters. Yes, your choice matters. Who you choose to align yourself with, whoever you choose to be in relation with, matters. It's hard to have a good relationship with a bad pick. And sometimes the first thing we need to accept is that we've made bad choices or have chosen by default. Yeah, you have to own when you drop the ball, when you make a bad choice. That's one of the crucial steps in making adjustments, is owning where you've made a bad choice. We often make bad picks when we're in bad places. This is why asking where am I is crucial. Because if we're in a bad place, we'll pick somebody that's suitable for that bad place and not for the place we will one day be. Oh man. In other words, he's encouraging us to pick for where we are going, not where we've been or where we are currently. We have to make adjustments again. Your choice matters. We have to choose for where we want to be, who we want to be, and where God is leading us in our purpose. That may not be So he says that may not be the case though. That person was supposed to be with us for a season to help us get out of that season. But now that we've gotten some sense, now that we know who we are, now that we're not suffering from rejection, brokenness, low self-esteem, emptiness, and insecurity, our relationships may need to change. Who you were in the last season will not be who you are in the next season if you make adjustments. And again, you have to have the right people around you. We often need divine assistance in choosing. Yes, some of us may have a great track record in our choices, but others of us are emotionally healthy. But others of us are emotionally healthy enough to honestly assess our past peaks and say, I need God. Some of you have made great picks your whole life, but if you're like me, you've made some bad choices. And if I'm not praying, if I'm not in my word, if I'm not surrounding myself with wise counsel, I will fumble and make a bad choice. So we need divine assistance, right? Then he says, acceptance starts within. He says, first, we must have a degree of emotional health ourselves in order to define ourselves apart from the relationship we're in. So listen, meaning this, I'm a pastor, but I'm someone outside of that role. I'm a father, but I'm also someone outside of that role. I'm a friend, but I'm someone outside of that role. So we have to know who we are at our core as we move forward, right? Relational intelligence is not disconnected from emotional intelligence. Actually, emotional intelligence is a prerequisite for relational intelligence. Yes, the whole concept of self-awareness is a key asset when it comes to accepting a new place in a person's life or moving someone into a new place in ours. He also goes forward and he says, resist rationalization. It is easy to rationalize someone's behavior when their fruit changes. We all have done that. We rationalize behavior because we are unable to accept the truth staring us in the face about people we care about. Oh man, I can't tell you how many times I've counseled people or just been in conversation where someone is just in a bad season and their loved one is making excuses and they are rationalizing why they are accepting what they are accepting. No. When you see smoke and fire, don't rationalize why it's burning. Do something about it. All right. He says alignment isn't a measure of love. Say that again. Alignment is not a measure of love. He says accepting what we uncover in the reflection, evaluation, and clarification process means we can now begin to align our relationships properly. We must not confuse alignment with love. Yes. We don't love people in our group of 3 more than we love people in our group of 12. We just put people in the 3 because at this point in their lives, they're safer than the 12. Yes. However, proper alignment begins with us being clear on some non-negotiables of our relational categories. Here it is, finally. The spirit of friendship versus friends. Oh, y'all, this is good. The spirit of friendship versus friends. It says, I'm certainly not saying that just because a person is not in our friend category, we aren't friendly with them. I would say some people call this being just being nice to people, or just being casual with them, even though y'all are not besties. So you can be friendly even if you're not friends. That's the spirit of friendship. The spirit of friendship should permeate every relationship, from the associates to the assignments to the advisors. There is a difference, however, between operating in the spirit of friendship and treating people who are not friends as friends. This can also lead to a kind of unhealthy rationalization. We end up deciding that just because we are friendly with someone, that somehow they are our friends. Listen, just because someone is friendly with you doesn't mean that y'all are in a friendship. Okay. In fact, I would advise you to be friendly with everybody, but not everybody deserves to be in your safe space and become friends. We also must not confuse alignment with entitlement. There will always be people who feel entitled to certain places and spaces in your life. We may even feel like they are entitled to a particular role because of the nature of the relationship. This could be anything from we go to church together to we are family. But as I've noted before, just because we are in the same spiritual or natural family does not mean that a person automatically meets the criteria for a particular place or space in our lives. The quicker we can accept this, the better off we can be relationally. There's so much to process. As I read this book multiple times, man, I've learned that I can't digest this stuff just in one video or just in one sitting or one reading. I have to go back. I have to make notes. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Man, if you're watching, if you're listening, watch this video a couple times, man, and comment under it to tell me what are your thoughts concerning what you just heard. All right. And so, man, this has been good. I'm going to take a time to process this some more. This is the conclusion of part 2 as we discern our relationships. So the next part, which is part 3, and I'm going to drop those videos on you. It will deal with aligning your relationship. So we have defined our relationships. We have discerned our relationships. Now it's time to align them. And with aligning them, we will deal with advocation, conversation, limitations, and elimination. Here we go. See you next time as we dive into part 3, aligning our relationships. Peace.